Have you noticed how every trip to the feed store seems to cost a little more than the last? One bag turns into two. Then suddenly you're wondering if your chickens are laying eggs for you or if you're working just to keep them fed. Here's what surprised me. Many experienced homesteaders don't rely entirely on commercial feed. Instead, they let nature do part of the work. Around their chicken runs grow living buffets, plants that return season after season, producing fresh greens, protein-rich leaves, seeds, and even insects that chickens eagerly hunt themselves. The goal isn't to eliminate balanced feed altogether. Healthy chickens still need a complete diet, especially reliable sources of protein, energy, vitamins, and minerals. But the right plants can significantly reduce supplemental feeding costs while giving your flock variety, natural enrichment, and fresh nutrition throughout much of the year. Today we're exploring 6 remarkable plants that practically feed themselves while helping feed your chickens. Some thrive with almost no attention, others improve your soil while producing an endless harvest. And one of them has been called one of the greatest forgotten chicken plants you'll ever grow. By the end of this video, you'll know how to create a backyard that works with nature instead of against it. And trust me, the final plant may completely change how you think about feeding poultry. Let's begin. Plant number 1. Comfrey, the living protein factory. Imagine walking outside early on a warm summer morning. The dew still clings to broad emerald leaves, each one nearly as long as your forearm. Thick stems rise from the ground like miniature trees, while clusters of purple, blue, or creamy white bell-shaped flowers nod gently in the breeze. Bumblebees buzz happily from bloom to bloom, treating the plant like a neighborhood cafe. That impressive plant is comfrey. At first glance, it simply looks lush, but gardeners and chicken keepers know it as one of the hardest working plants in the yard. Comfrey is a deep-rooted perennial, meaning it comes back every year without replanting. A perennial is simply a plant that survives for several growing seasons, unlike annuals that complete their life cycle in one year. Once established, comfrey develops roots that can reach astonishing depths, allowing it to continue growing even during dry weather when many other plants begin to struggle. Those deep roots perform another remarkable job. They pull minerals such as potassium, calcium, and trace nutrients from deep in the soil, concentrating them in the leaves. When you cut those leaves, you're harvesting nutrients that many shallow-rooted plants never reach. This is one reason gardeners treasure comfrey, as both a natural fertilizer and a chicken forage crop. Chickens absolutely love tender young leaves. Many owners simply chop the fresh foliage into smaller pieces and mix it with other greens or scatter it around the run. Others allow the leaves to wilt slightly first, making them even easier for birds to peck apart. Here's the practical benefit. A mature comfrey plant can produce several harvests during the growing season. Instead of buying bags of greens, you can simply walk outside with a basket and gather fresh forage in minutes. What most beginners don't realize is just how forgiving comfrey is. Once established, it asks for very little. It rarely complains about summer heat, recovers quickly after cutting, and often grows larger every year. The secret is choosing the right location from the start. Because comfrey develops such enormous roots, moving it later can be extremely difficult. Plant it where you truly want it to stay. USDA hardiness zones are simply a guide that tells gardeners which plants can survive winter temperatures in different regions. Comfrey generally thrives in zones 4 through 9 and prefers full sun to partial shade with reasonably well-drained soil. A useful tip many experienced growers follow is to cut the leaves just before flowering. At that stage, they're tender, abundant, and the plant quickly sends up another flush of fresh growth. Every harvest feels like the garden has quietly stocked your chicken pantry all over again. And that's only the beginning. Because the next plant doesn't just feed chickens, it actually improves the soil while doing it. Plant number 2. White clover, nature's living lawn. Most people see clover and think weed. Experienced gardeners often smile because they know better. Picture a soft green carpet spreading beneath fruit trees or across open spaces between raised beds. Tiny 3-part leaves shimmer after a rainstorm, while countless white flower heads dance with bees from sunrise until evening. It looks peaceful, but beneath the soil, something extraordinary is happening. White clover forms a partnership with beneficial bacteria that capture nitrogen from the air and convert it into forms plants can use. Nitrogen is one of the essential nutrients responsible for healthy green growth. In other words, this humble plant quietly helps improve the surrounding soil. That's why many regenerative gardeners intentionally sow clover instead of fighting it. For chickens, clover is much more than ground cover. Its tender leaves stay soft and appealing through much of the growing season. Birds happily graze them throughout the day while scratching for insects hiding underneath. And insects are another hidden benefit. Healthy clover patches attract worms, beetles, spiders, and numerous tiny creatures that naturally become part of a chicken's diet. Your flock isn't just eating the plant, they're harvesting an entire miniature ecosystem. Imagine opening the coop each morning. Instead of rushing toward a feeder, your hens wander through a green carpet, nibbling fresh leaves, scratching for bugs, and dust bathing nearby. They're staying busy exactly as chickens were designed to. That's something commercial feed alone can never provide. Beginners succeed with white clover because it's incredibly easy to establish. Scatter seed over prepared soil. Keep it moist during germination. And once it fills in, it often requires surprisingly little maintenance. It performs especially well in USDA zones 3 through 10 and tolerates both full sun and partial shade. One important tip is to avoid mowing every flower immediately. Those blossoms provide nectar for pollinators, and allowing portions to bloom creates a healthier backyard ecosystem while still leaving plenty of fresh leaves for your flock. Sometimes the cheapest chicken feed is already growing beneath your feet, you just haven't been calling it by the right name. Plant number 3, duckweed, tiny plant, massive harvest. If someone handed you a handful of duckweed, you might wonder why anyone would bother growing it. It's tiny. Each plant is no bigger than a grain of rice, floating peacefully across the surface of ponds, tubs, and shallow containers like a bright green carpet. But don't let its size fool you. Duckweed is one of the fastest growing flowering plants on Earth. Under warm conditions with plenty of nutrients, it multiplies at an astonishing rate. That's why many homesteaders use it as a renewable source of fresh forage for ducks, geese, fish, and chickens. Imagine walking to a small backyard pond each morning with nothing more than a kitchen strainer. Within seconds, you've collected a bowl full of fresh green plants ready to supplement your flock's diet. That's exactly what makes duckweed so appealing. It's harvested over and over without digging, pruning, or replanting. What most beginners don't realize is that duckweed contains a surprisingly high level of protein compared to many leafy plants. While the exact amount varies depending on growing conditions, healthy duckweed can make a valuable addition to a balanced feeding program. Your chickens usually peck at it eagerly, especially when it's mixed with other fresh greens or scattered across damp soil. The secret to success is clean water. Duckweed thrives in still or slow-moving water that's rich in nutrients but free from harmful contaminants. A shallow stock tank, wildlife pond, or repurposed container can all become productive growing spaces. Because duckweed is aquatic, USDA hardiness zones matter less than temperature. It grows best during warm months when water temperatures remain mild to warm. One helpful tip is never to harvest the entire surface. Always leave a generous layer behind so the remaining plants can multiply quickly for the next harvest. Sometimes the smallest plant in the garden produces one of the biggest harvests. But here's something even more surprising. The next plant has been growing in lawns, pathways, and forgotten corners for centuries. Most people call it a weed. Experienced chicken keepers often call it free food. Plant number 4, common plantain, the backyard volunteer. Walk through almost any old garden or country path, and chances are you'll find broad green leaves hugging the ground like a natural rosette. Then come the slender flower stalks, rising quietly above the leaves and carrying hundreds of tiny seeds. This is common plantain, not the tropical fruit, but one of the world's most useful wild plants. Gardeners often overlook it because it appears without invitation. Chickens don't make that mistake. They eagerly nibble the tender young leaves while pecking apart the mature seed heads. Those seeds provide an extra source of natural nutrition, while the leaves contain vitamins and minerals that help diversify your flock's diet. One reason plantain has survived for centuries is its incredible toughness. It tolerates compacted soil. It survives dry weather. It bounces back after repeated grazing. Even when chickens spend hours scratching nearby, established plants often recover surprisingly well. That's exactly why many homesteaders intentionally allow patches of plantain to remain around the edges of their chicken runs. Instead of wasting time pulling it out, they let it become part of the landscape. Plantain grows happily in USDA zones 3 through 10 and tolerates everything from full sun to partial shade. Here's one useful gardening tip. Harvest young leaves regularly instead of waiting until they become large and tough. Frequent harvesting encourages fresh, tender growth that chickens enjoy much more. And don't remove every flower stalk. Leaving a few to mature allows the plant to reseed naturally, creating an ongoing source of forage year after year. Sometimes nature plants exactly what your chickens have been looking for. This is where things become even more rewarding. Our next plant doesn't just feed chickens. It also feeds people, attracts wildlife, provides cooling shade, and can keep producing for decades. Plant number 5, mulberry, the backyard tree that keeps giving. Picture a warm summer afternoon. Sunlight filters through broad green leaves as clusters of juicy berries ripen overhead. Some fruits are deep purple, others bright red, while certain varieties remain creamy white even when fully mature. A gentle breeze shakes the branches. One berry falls, then another. Within seconds, your chickens come racing across the yard. Few sights are more entertaining. Mulberry trees naturally drop ripe fruit over several weeks, creating a steady supply of fresh treats that birds happily gather themselves. It's almost like having an automatic feeder designed by nature. But the berries aren't the only benefit. The dense canopy creates welcome shade during hot weather, giving chickens a cooler place to rest. Heat stress can reduce egg production and make birds less active, so that natural shelter becomes just as valuable as the fruit itself. The leaves also attract caterpillars, beetles, and other insects that become additional protein-rich snacks for your flock. In one tree, you've created food, shelter, and habitat. That's hard to beat. Mulberries thrive in USDA zones 4 through 9, depending on the variety, and perform best in full sun with well-drained soil. They're remarkably adaptable once established, and generally require little maintenance beyond occasional pruning. One simple tip is to prune young trees into an open shape while they're still small. Better airflow, easier harvesting, and more sunlight reaching the fruit all contribute to healthier growth. A single well-placed tree can feed your chickens, cool your yard, and reward you with harvests for generations. We've covered 5 incredible plants already, but one final plant might be the most productive of them all. It's often called one of nature's perfect survival foods, and many experienced poultry keepers consider it indispensable. Plant number 6, mulberry, the tree that feeds your chickens for decades. Imagine stepping into your backyard on a warm summer morning. Above you, graceful branches are bending under the weight of hundreds of dark purple, red, or creamy white berries. A gentle breeze shakes the limbs, and ripe fruit begins dropping onto the grass below. Before you even reach the tree, your chickens have already heard it. They come running. Some flap excitedly. Others scratch beneath the canopy, pecking at every sweet berry that lands on the ground. It's one of nature's simplest feeding systems. The tree does all the harvesting. Here's why so many experienced homesteaders adore mulberry trees. Unlike annual crops that require planting every spring, mulberries are long-lived perennials. Once established, many trees continue producing generous harvests for decades with relatively little care. And chickens don't just enjoy the fruit. They happily eat fallen berries, tender leaves from many mulberry varieties, and the insects attracted to the ripening fruit. The shade beneath the tree also creates a cooler place for birds to rest during hot afternoons. That's a benefit many people overlook. Heat stress can reduce egg production, decrease appetite, and make chickens less active. A mature mulberry tree helps create a more comfortable environment while producing free forage. For beginners, mulberries are refreshingly forgiving. They tolerate pruning well, adapt to a variety of soils, and are generally more drought-tolerant once established than many fruit trees. Most varieties grow well in USDA zones 4 through 9, depending on the species, with full sun producing the heaviest crops. Here's one useful gardening tip. Instead of allowing the tree to grow extremely tall, prune it regularly to keep it within easy harvesting height. This makes maintenance simpler and allows more fruit to fall where your chickens can reach it. Sometimes the best chicken feeder grows from the sky down. Now imagine combining all 6 plants into one backyard. Comfrey grows beside the fence, ready for repeated harvests. White clover forms a soft carpet beneath fruit trees. Plantain fills pathways and neglected corners. Mulberry trees cast cooling shade while dropping berries. Other perennial forage plants continue producing through the seasons. Instead of relying on a single source of food, your chickens enjoy variety every single day. That's important because no individual plant provides everything chickens need. A healthy flock benefits from diversity. Commercial feed still serves as the nutritional foundation for most backyard flocks, especially laying hens, growing chicks, and breeding birds. The plants we've explored work best as valuable supplements that reduce feed costs, encourage natural foraging, and provide enrichment, not as complete replacements. This approach offers several additional benefits. Your chickens stay active. Instead of standing around waiting for feed, they spend hours scratching, pecking, hunting, insects, and exploring. That natural behavior helps reduce boredom, feather pecking, and stress while providing excellent mental stimulation. Meanwhile, your garden begins working as a complete ecosystem. Bees visit flowering plants. Beneficial insects increase. Organic matter returns to the soil. Roots reduce erosion. Shade cools the landscape. Every season, the system becomes a little stronger. That's what makes regenerative gardening so rewarding. You're not constantly fighting nature. You're inviting nature to help. Before you rush outside with a packet of seeds, here are a few lessons experienced chicken keepers learn over time. First, don't introduce large amounts of any new forage all at once. Just like people, chickens adjust best when new foods are introduced gradually. Second, remember that young chicks have different nutritional needs than adult birds. Growing chicks require carefully balanced starter feeds designed for proper development, so fresh forage should complement, not replace their formulated diet. Third, protect young plants while they're getting established. Fresh seedlings are irresistible to curious chickens. Temporary fencing, cages, or growing plants just outside the run until they're mature can make all the difference. Finally, always confirm that any plant you introduce is considered safe for poultry. Many beautiful ornamental plants can be toxic if eaten. Building a forage garden is about choosing the right plants, not simply allowing everything to grow. Imagine walking into your garden a year from now. Instead of hauling heavy bags of feed every week, you're carrying a basket. A few comfrey leaves, fresh clover, plantain seed heads, mulberries gathered beneath the tree. Your chickens eagerly gather around, knowing fresh forage has arrived again. The garden feels alive. Bees hum among the flowers. Butterflies drift across the yard. The soil grows richer. The birds stay busy. And every season brings another harvest from plants you only had to establish once. That's the beauty of designing a garden that works with nature. It rewards you year after year. Not because someone hid these plants from the world, but because many modern gardens simply forgot how valuable they truly are. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which of these 6 plants would you grow first for your flock? Do you already use comfrey, white clover, plantain, mulberry, or another favorite forage plant for your chickens? Share your experience in the comments. Your ideas might help another backyard chicken keeper save money and build a healthier flock. If you enjoy practical gardening, sustainable homesteading, and simple ways to make your backyard more productive, subscribe. Every week, we explore time-tested plants, natural growing techniques, and smart gardening ideas that help you harvest more while working less. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and let nature do more of the work.